Your office is expending quite a bit of money in regards to the drug epidemic. I believe it's like $42 million this year, and your request is for $46 billion next year.
Yeah.
With that being said, you've talked in the past about the various programs you have going. We appreciate the efforts. At the same time, throughout the Commonwealth, we're hearing different things where the Lieutenant Governor is going on a fact-finding tour or listening tour on legalization of recreational marijuana. The Auditor General was just in there and enlightened us with some of his recent studies on the potential revenue impacts of legalization of recreational marijuana. I'd like to have your input on it, especially in conjunction with what you're doing on your drug task force and things like that. I myself am a believer in that marijuana is a gateway drug. That's just my opinion. I'm no expert, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, Representative, thank you for the question. I guess I'll just state the obvious at the outset. I'm a law enforcer, not a lawmaker. So it's up to this body what they choose to do as it relates to recreational marijuana. My job is to enforce the laws on the books. I strongly go out and enforce the laws and protect the Commonwealth's medicinal marijuana law, for example, that this body passed. I understand that conversations are undergoing in the 67 counties led by the Lieutenant Governor. I presume that there are conversations happening in this chamber and the chamber across the way. My only guidance, if I may, to this body would be include law enforcement in those discussions. I think it's important that there's always a law enforcement perspective at the table for these discussions. And for my part, I'll continue to enforce the laws on the books, as I've stated very clearly many times.
And from a law enforcement perspective, then, have you had any discussions with states that have legalized recreational marijuana? What effect that's had on the law enforcement community?
I have. Actually, months before the governor made his announcement, we began a fact-finding mission of our own dealing with law enforcement in other states, Colorado, Washington State, California, a few other states that have legalized both recreational and medicinal, to learn about the various issues that were raised. I'm particularly interested in children and the effect on kids. I'm interested in the effect on our roadways. I'm interested on how those states have used legalization to correct some of the injustices in the past as it relates to marijuana enforcement, something I've spoken out about on many times. And we're going to continue to gather that information to the extent that the governor, lieutenant governor, chairman, other chairs wish to have that perspective at hearings and what have you. We're happy to provide that. My job, as I said, though, is to be a law enforcer, not a lawmaker. I leave that up to this body to exercise its judgment.
And not to put you on the spot, but the funding that you're presently getting for drug-related things, do you have any opinion if that number would increase because of legalization of recreational marijuana?
Well, I'm happy to try to answer your question. I'm not sure I understand.
Do you think you would need more money to continue your efforts that you're presently ongoing if recreational marijuana was legalized?
I don't know that it would have a material effect. I mean, you're asking me a hypothetical, which I hate to engage in those, but out of respect to you and this body, I'll do my best to address it. I mean, the work we do through our drug lines, whether it's local drug task forces, BNI, or the other work we do, is really focused on heroin, fentanyl, opioids, meth, which is a much bigger problem today than it was a year ago when I sat before this body, particularly in rural parts of our state, especially in the sort of upper tier in the northwestern part of our state. So we focus the lion's share of our efforts on that. Do we come across marijuana as we enforce the laws? Sure, but that's really not the focus of what we do.
And I understand. And again, it gets back to my own opinion of it being a gateway. Yeah. But I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.